2-9. Yeah. So you can judge consensus if you wish. Other than that, I don't think we'll have any trouble. It's pretty simple. We have the usual crowd. Yes, Randy's here. I hope he shows up.
I'm meeting him here after the session, so I hope he's.
We'll wait a moment. We do have a missing presenter, so. Nah, come on.
I'm going to remind Keith. Jonathan, I'm very concerned that we're not meeting Keith in this process. Take it up, Ranchette.
I mean, I think you've done everything exactly the right way.
Oh, no, I'm not worried about it. I don't have any. I was kind of happy to see that I have.
Yeah.
He's here. Fabulous. All right. So that's. Let's get started. This is ECRIT. You might think I'm a chair, but actually I'm just standing in because both chairs weren't able to make the meeting. I'm Brian Rosen, sitting in. Yes. So both Mark and Roger weren't able to be with us, so I will try to do my best, even though I'm presenting. So we'll be all right. Note well, it's Wednesday. You've seen this before, and I certainly hope you know what it means. Please read it if you haven't. It's important. Here is our agenda. We have emergency calls, car crash and e-call. Then we have data only, validation around the plan change, and a complete and similar location. Probably the last three won't take 10 minutes, so we'll have plenty of time if we need to for any other discussion. This was the posted agenda. Is there anybody that wishes to bash that agenda? Easy. Here's our document status. 2 of the documents are already adopted, and there's a third that I'm going to ask to be adopted. And we need reviewers on them, as we'll do. Working group last call was submitted for car crash and e-call, and it'll end on the 19th. So if you haven't had an opportunity to review, you should be reviewing because we're in working group last call on both of those documents.
It ended.
Oh, it ended. I'm sorry, 10/19. Hello, 10/19. It's over. We're going to submit, right?
Right.
And so you'll have another opportunity.
That's right.
Held routing and additional data are in IESG processing. So those are finished from our point of view, and the only thing we'll have to do is deal with comments from IETF last call and the various AD issues.
I think additional data is in the RFC editor's queue, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So this is
It
just
just
a,
a little
this is like a
off.
little bit out of
Yes,
date.
a little
yeah.
off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Held routing, I just got the pub rec, but additional
Right.
data is
Yeah,
through
yeah,
the
it's in,
IESG.
okay. So we're there. And so it's off. We should be, it's additional data should be in pub rec.
Additional data.
It's in RFC editor queue.
Right.
So we've done that milestone. We don't have any more milestones, so we'll have to go and work on that. We have milestones for the data only and emergency call. I'm sorry, the e-call car crash things are there. So they were up. We're proposing to update those to March, and all of those documents are well along the path. They really just need reviews, and we can get them done. We can beat this pretty easily, but they have slipped. And the one was done, the routing request extension. Any comments on those milestones? They're really generous. There really isn't any reason we can't get these documents out much sooner than March of next year. But all that requires is reviews and comments.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, these should definitely not go another IETF
Yes.
meeting cycle.
Right. There's just really no reason for that.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
way well along. There are people who use them and need them. There are people who are implementing them. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's the chair slides, and our first agenda item is car crash. Randy. Chair Mike. All right, hang on, I got to get your slides up. I think that's these. You slideshow. There you go.
Okay, probably move on to the next slide. Hi, everybody. I'm Randall Gellens. These documents have been around for a while. This particular one is describing how next generation automatic crash notification from vehicles are implemented using IETF protocols. A few IETFs ago, based on a suggestion from Keith, this was made actually an extension or a dependency of on e-call. So it uses the same call setup mechanism as e-call, but because this is not for e-call, but for generalized automatic crash notifications, such as in North America, it replaces the e-call has a mandatory MSD, which is an e-call specific data set. This document uses the NINA APCO VEDS as mandatory, but of course permits other data sets if those are needed by different regions. So that's the only technical difference down there. And then the rest of the differences between this document, this one talks more about, I guess you can go to, yeah, it describes the models that are in use now and how those models migrate. So the important thing is that this document has a standardized way of how such calls are identified and presented to PSAPs, and how the data sets in them are available to PSAPs so that the calls can be processed in a significantly more, significantly better way than what's done today. So the document's also usable by vehicle manufacturers and service providers for the leg of the call between the vehicle and a service provider, if there is such a leg, although that's completely out of, it's not mandatory in any way, but it's certainly usable for that purpose, which can be a benefit. Next slide.
But I don't have a scribe. Can I interrupt? Can I have a jabber scribe and, if possible, a second minute taker? Sorry, I was not paying attention. Was paying attention to the slide. Someone, is anyone in the jabber room?
I can be.
Great, thank you very much. And could I have a second note taker? We have one. All right. Well, I'll manage that.
I'll send you whatever notes I
Yeah.
do. Okay. So next slide. Right. So the most significant change to the draft that happened since the last IETF, which happened before working group last call, was that we added an example of a VEDS data structure in there, and we validated that example against the VEDS schema. So the working group last call is expired on this. I believe this document is ready for IETF last call.
Any comments? Has anybody read the latest version of the draft? We had quite a few people reading prior versions. Once again, this could use more review. Although we've had quite a few people who have read it, commented on it, and we've taken care of it.
Exactly.
And those people usually are easy to get to speak up if they didn't like the change. So I'm not too worried about that, but another review or two really would be great if we could get it. And both of them, they're very similar documents. If you've read one, you've pretty much read the other, which was by design. But any other comments? Okay, want to move on to the other one?
So I would like to see like someone respond to the working group last calls on these.
Yes.
So maybe if you could ask for to actually like write down the name of someone who is going to review.
Sure.
I think that would be good.
I mean, Keith is the obvious guy to actually do it because he was the one who had a lot of objections.
Yeah, but
and he's not here.
I think you should just
Get somebody else.
just because Keith's time is
Yeah, okay.
very limited.
You were going to have somebody from OnStar take a look at it too.
No, all I've got is somebody from OnStar giving me looking at a
Okay.
better example.
Okay.
Is there anyone here who could possibly look at both of these documents and take and say, yes, I think they're okay? I mean, that's all we really want to have at this point. We'll get the chairs. The chairs will hunt somebody up. I'll do it myself if I need to. But yes, we need to have that. Okay. And
Okay, and now on to the e-call document. This document is very similar to the last one, the difference being that this one is actually sets out the technical basis for call setup that's used by the other one. This document does not discuss anything about North American deployments, but it does talk a little briefly about the pan-European e-call service, which,
sorry,
I think we jumped ahead a little bit faster.
I don't know why it came up the wrong thing. There we go.
Okay, right. So next slide.
There we go.
Right, okay. So also, I believe 3GPP now has work items in progress for e-call, and we did send them a liaison a few months back to make sure that they're aware of this document. Next slide. Right, okay. So I believe, again, this document is also ready for IETF last call.
And the same thing applies. Well, we need reviewing both documents. The only thing to make they're incredibly similar. All right. So the next one is data only. Let's see, gotta go to here. An interesting problem that I'm chairing, but I'm chairing the meeting, but since I'm not the actual chair, I can't actually deal with the materials. They had to deal with the materials, so some slides didn't get updated, but that's all right. All right, hang on one second. It was data only. All right, I'm going to do it from here because I'm running this. And slides. So data only provides a way to take a CAP message, which is the generic common alerting protocol that is used in a variety of emergency circumstances that it's an XML data structure that's used to announce emergency items. It's used, for example, in the the text messaging thing where you get a warning. Cell broadcast mechanisms in the US, they use CAP to send the message from the message originator to the system that distributes the messages out through the cell system. So that mechanism is well accepted as the way to send alerts. And what this does is it gives us a way to take additional data and put that together with this data only CAP message and create an emergency call that doesn't have media. We did have a working group last call. It ended. We had no objections, but we didn't have enough reviews. So what I'm asking for here, I'm begging, please review it. I will get a reviewer from Nina from it, but they're not regular work group members, and that's not a really good thing. We could really use people who are in the work group, who are with the IETF, know what a good document looks like, to take a look at it. It's a pretty simple document, we're deploying this, and it's part of the NG911 system in the US. So it's going to get deployed. We have implementations of it actually. So it's one of these things of we got to get this document done. Yeah, Randy.
Randall Gellens. So after the last IETF, I sent, we talked about it because I had a number of comments.
Right.
And I sent actually an edited XML, which
got lost.
And then Hannes put out an update that didn't take, so I think Hannes is now going to be
he is.
merging them.
Okay. He agreed to merge them, and we apologize for screwing that up. But yes, those comments will be incorporated in.
All right, once those are in, I think the document will be in good shape, and I'll read it again and say so.
Okay, thank you. If we could get someone else to do it, that would really be great. Oh, excellent, Krister, appreciate it. Thank you very much. Any other discussion on this one? Okay.
So Mark is having trouble getting into the Jabber room, but he's listening to the audio, and he said that all of the slides have been uploaded.
Okay, great.
So.
Validation. This is plan changes. Okay. So this document deals with lost, where you have a piece of data that is going to change, typically in the future. A real typical use case for this is that you have a part of what would be called a county in the US that is not part of a city, but the city is growing and annexes a part of the county into the boundary of the city. So the city gets bigger, and the county, and so that typically changes the routing of calls, because the cities typically have their own PSAPs and their own routing, their own police, fire, and EMS services. So all the routing in the lost server changes when that annexation occurs. And the annexation typically occurs midnight on some day, January 1st or something like that, that annexation occurs. And any routes that were in the system need to change. So the lost server's data needs to change, and you would like it to change exactly at the time that the annexation occurred, because what the emergency authorities want is that immediately before it goes to the old routing and immediately after it goes to the new routing. If a call is received from that area that gets annexed, you want to be able to have the routing change. There are other circumstances in which the data in the lost server changes. Another one would be a new house appears on a road where you didn't have a mapping for validation. You now do, and what used to be invalid is now valid. And again, before, you typically know that before the house is allowed to be used, and there's routing changes that have to get done with all these things. But anyways, so there isn't a way to handle that kind of problem. So the other thing that occurs, and then the draft actually has two mechanisms in it, is more useful for that second case where you get a new house, which is that if you have a list and the list has done validation and something changes that affects that validation, you have no way of telling it that that happens. The only way that exists in the current loss system is what's called periodic revalidation. So every once in a while, you go and revalidate the data in your database. We've done a bunch of work on this because we're deploying these systems now, and the validation, the periodic revalidation load swamps every other use of the loss server by orders of magnitude. It's crazy. But it's the only mechanism we have. There is no push mechanism that says what was valid is no longer valid. So the draft proposes ways to fix this. There's a new element in find service, which is a URI that you save with location that you validate. So when you do a query and you ask for validation, you're allowed to send a URI in, and the server will save that URI optionally. It's up to it whether it saves that URI. And if it becomes invalid, it sends you a message at that URI saying this location has become invalid. You should go do something about it. And then there's this date, this as of date, that you can use in the query so that you can say, I know that there's a change coming. I want to be able to have a new location in my list that is valid as of the date of that plan change. So you can say, tell me if this would be valid at this date. And you can do that. So before the plan change occurs, the people who are in the list can say, we'll go and figure out how to make our changes in the list at the annexation date, and we'll do the pre-validation with that advanced date to know whether or not it'll be valid when the annexation occurs. So the implementers who built these things really want this change, and there's been some list traffic that was generated by the guys who are doing this implementation that say, I've looked at this, I really want this. And that means they've read the document, they really understand what's in there, and they really want it for their implementations. So I'm asking that this one be adopted and that we review it and get it out. I think it's a pretty simple mechanism. Really, all it does is add a couple of parameters in the inputs, and then there's an error that if it didn't save your URI, it'll tell you that it didn't save your URI. And that's all there is to it. I mean, it doesn't really change the protocol in any way significantly. It just adds a couple of parameters to the input and gives the server some work to do in saving the URI. And it's up to it whether it saves it. It can limit how many URIs it saves for a given location. It can limit how many URIs it saves for a given client. Who knows? It doesn't matter. It's all policy. It's up to it. And we'd really like to get this adopted and through the process, because again, the load on the server for these periodic revalidations is really significantly more than anything else the server is doing. It's really amazing. Any questions on that? All right, now this is my draft, and I'm the acting chair, but I'm going to call for adopting this draft. Alyssa will judge whether or not we have consensus.
How many people have read the draft?
Ew, man.
So I think.
What do you want me to do?
Well, I know that there's been the shows of support on the list,
Yes.
but it would be good to get a few kind of IETF type people who've been involved in the working group more closely to read the draft
Okay.
and express some support for it.
Well,
do you have?
I've been here multiple times. This is like the fifth
Yeah.
time I've presented this. So, you
It's
know,
not
this
the
is a
fifth.
problem.
Right?
Huh?
I don't think it's actually the fifth time. It's been a couple times though. Yeah.
IETF 89. It was the first time.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. But we've never gotten a review from anyone else besides Randy. Is that
I think actually there's been two or three other people who have looked at the draft. Yeah, over that time period.
okay? I mean, I don't
But
think it
not
makes
lately.
sense. It makes a lot of sense to do a
Okay.
call for adoption in a room
Okay.
of people who haven't read the draft.
Yep.
But
Agreed.
but I think it would be fine to do it on the list and ask people to read it and then
Okay.
express support or not.
I mean, the other
So-
alternative is individual submission.
There are two people in the Jabber room that say they've read it.
Oh, okay. Who are they?
They are Mary Barnes and Mark Linsner.
Ah, okay. Well, Mark Linsner's the chair.
Yeah.
Okay.
What shall we do?
Again, with 3 people having read it, it doesn't make a lot of sense to do a call for adoption, I think.
No, I agree. It makes no call.
But I
No-
think,
no sense.
and I'm interested to hear if Mark, well, you can maybe ask Mark if he has an opinion. I don't want to like stand in for the chair if he's
Yeah.
here today. So can you do that, Ben? Ask Mark how he would like to proceed.
Mark says, I agree, we need more support.
Okay. So my suggestion would be to do the call for adoption on the list.
Okay.
And that way
Yep.
people who aren't here can chime in.
Yep.
So,
All right, we'll do that.
okay, great.
You also might want to ask people individually if they wouldn't mind reading it and
Oh, I will.
sending something to the list.
I will.
I'll read it again and send something to the list
I
so
appreciate
that it's
that.
explicit.
And are the Nina folks who chimed in that they want it, are they sending comments?
They have read it and don't have any comments because I've already dealt with them privately. So they can say that though.
But they should send an official thing that says
I
that
will do that.
they love it and
Yes.
it's great and it's just what they want.
We will do that. All right. The last one. Checking the agenda. This is similar location, right? And this is ECRIT. All right, this one. All right, slide view. All right, so what this does, this draft allows you to return location information in the find service response. That's what it does. It lets you put location in the response. So you put in a query with location information in it, and you get some location information back. There are 2 circumstances in which you would use this. One is when you send in enough information in the location information that we can uniquely identify a location in the data, and therefore we do know what the mapping should be, but you haven't given us enough information that the emergency authorities really would like you to have in the location, and we can return that additional information into it. So a really interesting example of this is if you send in a street address without a city name, but there's only one instance of that street name in the whole state or the whole province, we actually know what it is. And we really could route based on that, but we really don't want you to store in your lists a location without a city, without a municipality. There are more technical reasons why this is useful to have information like the county name when you didn't supply it, if the county is used for routing. And again, the circumstances is that we know because based on the municipality and the street address where you are, but you haven't specified what the county name is. It's there. And another example is that we have in the PITF, which means in the location information, we have the postal community name. And in many countries, the name that's in the post address is not the actual municipality. And the emergency systems tend to use the actual municipality names. And if you send in a postal address and it's unique, we can say, all right, but you really want to have the real community name, the real city name, the municipality name. Again, this occurs a lot in the US and it occurs somewhat less frequently in Canada. So we would like to be able to say, well, okay, we know where you are, but please put this information in the list, in the record in the list. So when it comes back in the emergency call, we have all the data. The other circumstance in which we use it is where you don't have a unique location. You give us information and it's not unique. And in this case, we use it to send information that was a did you mean? So it's a what you sent was invalid, but perhaps you meant this, and here's one or maybe more than one valid sets of location information that it might be. And then that's used as a prompt to the user when they entered an incorrect address that perhaps you meant this address. Both of those are useful because we're trying to make sure that in as many cases as possible, the list has as much valid information as we can. So when remembering that validation occurs before an emergency call, right? So we're trying to get this to happen correct before the emergency call so that when the emergency call happens, we have all the right data, right? Any questions or comments on this? And this one is already IETF, so we're really just looking for we're begging for people to review it. We will have some NINA folks review it. Again, they're not regular participants, but at least they can tell you that they've looked at it and they're the folks that are going to implement it. But I'd really like to get some reviews and get people to take a look and see if it's all right. It's a little bit more of a protocol change than the prior one. The prior one's a pretty simple change to the mechanism. This is a little more heavyweight. You're getting a full set of location information in the response that is currently only in the request. It's exactly the same. It's the same structures, but it occurs in the response instead of the request. But it doesn't change the protocol in any substantial amount. It just gives you this big hunk of data and optional. And you can always ignore it, right? Anybody can ignore the data. There's nothing that says you have to pay any attention to this data. It just is there if you want it. All right. Reviews, please review. And that's
Maybe take some names.
take some names. Is there someone in the room that'd be willing to review this? Please. Come on, guys.
Is anybody in the room actually in the meeting and not doing email? Yes, I think there's people who want work to be done, but I don't see people volunteering to review. Come on, guys.
Right. I mean, I'll review yours if you review mine.
This might not make you happy, but I know Winterbottom had commented on this document at some point in the long ago past.
Yeah.
I might ask him to review.
Yeah. I can. I can.
And Mark says that he'll review it.
Okay. That's good. All right. That's it. We've been through all of our drafts. I think let's get out of this and into any other items people want to discuss? It is a little disheartening to have the work of this working group is being implemented. We're actually deploying this stuff. There are multiple actual deployments. It's not being deployed. It is deployed. It's being used to route emergency calls every day in a couple of states now. And the people who are implementing it, unfortunately, aren't in the IETF world, right? And they depend on me and Randy and a few others of us, Roger, to bring the work here to get it done. But then we can't get any kind of finishing of people who are actually deploying this stuff and saying, gee, it's great, we really like it, but we need these little things. And it's tough to deal with when it's going to be, it's a successful protocol. It's really amazing. There are at least 10 interoperable implementations of LOS that I'm aware of.
And when was the last time that happened in the IETF?
Right. And there's a lot more coming. It's pretty amazing.
So Randall Gallons, I think somebody who has actually implemented from the draft,
yeah,
particularly an interoperable implementation, would be an ideal person to send a note saying, I've implemented this. That's all they have to say is, I've implemented this, this is good. That's it. 2 lines. 1 line if they want.
Yeah, on this one, the similar location, the only implementation I know is authors implementations, but you know.
Well, again,
right.
you know, if you've got somebody that wants to do it, that would be really good. And
right.
they don't have to be an IETF participant, you know, if they can say,
right,
I've read the draft.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Well,
I've tried, I am still trying to get some of them to come.
So I don't think it's necessarily a problem, right? Like because as you say, you and Randy and a few other people do a lot of this work with these other communities, and you sort of channel it all back to here. And so that's fine. Like we don't,
well, but
everybody,
the problem is in getting reviews from outside that small group of people.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, as long as the small group is all reviewing each other's work, then that's better than nothing. Right. So that's good. I do wonder if, I mean, this is like, I'm just now sort of going off the cuff, but I tend to think that in the IETF, we spend not nearly enough time documenting our successes. Like we focus so much on failure, and like the proportion of like focus on failure to success is completely insane, right? So I wonder if, you know, we could channel some of that, you know, get some of them to talk about their implementation experience and you guys to contribute and just like write it down. You know what I mean? I don't know exactly what the format would be. Maybe this is like for the IETF journal or something, but you know, like document how it went. And I mean, it's the number of emergency calls using it. Like that's like amazing PR, right? Like you never, you can never exploit anything more than an emergency. So like, I don't know, just something to think about. And we can chat offline.
Let's do that because I really would like to do that. It's a successful protocol.
Yeah.
Christine Runniger, channeling my colleagues at the Internet Society. Yes, please, IETF Journal, come see me. I'll put you in touch with the right people to get your word out there.
Okay, IETF Journal it is.
Gary might give you a blood spot too.
Sure. Okay. Anything else? I'll give you back a piece of your morning. Thank you.
Clue is starting at 10:30, right, Ronnie? Yeah. Okay. So Clue will be in here starting at 10:30. So you have an hour.
Sounds like Brian, you face the problems between places which you see. Only the tip of the iceberg actually attends IETF.
Yeah. Actually doing.
Care about it. Motivate, get them on the list.
Yeah, it's exactly the same problem.
Yeah, there's hundreds and hundreds. So there's right.
But if you have all the other ones,
I think she did it all. So I did it all. That's enough. You know, that's all.
Even in the, even in upper education, the youthful information.
Yeah. Right. But yeah, I mean, this is.
yeah.
Well, but this is the thing. What I want to say was those notes that say I implemented it, but I mean, yeah, they can go on the IETF journal, that's fine. Then they should just send out this, and that's enough review. It's not on. Assuming they're independent.
There's interoperability.
That's right. This group to get the chairs and the ADs and the documents all
When you done it, anyway,
and all the process requires